This is Aaron Golub, host of the Blind Ambition podcast. We'll be bringing you world-class leaders, entrepreneurs, and athletes, people who have overcome obstacles and used their ambition to create enormous success in their lives. If you enjoy this podcast, if you get anything out of it, the only thing I'll ever ask is that you subscribe, rate, and review. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, everyone. This is Aaron Golub, your host. Today I'm joined by Doug Ellin. Doug, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Tulane grads, just got to stick
for
together.
Anyone, that's why I reached out, because of Tulane. For anyone who doesn't know, Doug is the producer and creator of Entourage. So, first I'd kind of like to go back. I know you grew up in New York and went to Tulane. What got you to go from New York to Tulane?
My brother actually went there before me, but I went to visit him when he was a freshman, and I just loved everything about New Orleans. And, it was kind of far enough to get away from home, but not too far, because I wanted to go to UCLA. My parents weren't letting me go that far. I don't really know what the difference is, but they thought they figured I'd never come home, which I guess after college I didn't. I went to LA the day I graduated Tulane and never came back. So.
Oh, makes sense. That's awesome. How was your experience there?
At Tulane?
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, New Orleans is one of the best cities in the world. I'm a food and music guy, so I loved it. And school, I'm not a school person, but Tulane was a good place.
Any favorite restaurants or bars or music in the city?
I mean, so many, but not even from when I was there. When I go back now, I always, my friend owns Company Burger, which is an amazing burger.
Love it.
There's so many great restaurants, obviously, but I always make sure I have a burger when I get there. And I get the port of call for monsoon still. I've been doing for 30 years. And, but my favorite thing, the crawfish Monica at Jazz Fest is one of my favorite things, though, of all the food. But
all the food there.
What?
All the food at Jazz Fest. I mean, the entire experience is so much fun.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be back to normal next year.
Yeah, seriously. So once you kind of left, I know you went out to LA. I was reading, did you go out to become a comedian at first?
Yeah, I mean, I went out with no plan whatsoever. I didn't go to law school, which was, I guess, what I was doing for 4 years of college, planning on doing that. So I started doing stand-up, just amateur nights. I had no plan at all. I didn't know anybody in LA except for I met my ex-wife the day I got there, but other than that, I didn't know anyone.
Yeah. And then, working in the mailroom, you were able to just work your way up really well. Talk about that experience, just whatever it was, the grind of trying to become a big producer.
Well, unfortunately, I did not work my way up well at all. I actually got fired from the mailroom probably less than 6 weeks into that job, and I don't think I ever had a real job again. I raised some money, made a short film. I got into film school, and then I came out and I was offered my first, paying job when I got out of film school. And I've been lucky enough to kind of work ever since. But I definitely didn't do the whole mailroom grind that a lot of people do in Hollywood. I started there and I did the best I could, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, and kind of going back, when I was doing some research on you, that short film, I saw you were quoted saying it was, Fat Beach was the worst film you've ever seen.
Well, Fat Beach is a feature I did after the short. So Fat Beach, I did a couple of short films before that, and I got hired to do Fat Beach. I mean, I won't even judge it. Other people can do that, but it's been playing for 20 years. It's still on cable now. I think I was paid about $10,000 to do it. The budget was about $100,000, but it's still out there. You can still turn on your TV and see it. So somebody made some money, but it was not me.
Oh, that's funny. And I guess kind of, your big outbreak was Entourage. I love the show. I know so many others do too. What was kind of that experience like creating such a hit?
I mean, it was obviously it was a good run and a good ride. Before that, I had done a movie that called Kissing a Fool that was released around the world and looked like it was going to do some stuff, and then it didn't make as much money as people wanted. So I was having a tough time for a bit after that. And then I partnered with Mark Wahlberg and wrote this script that HBO approved after a couple of years. And we were lucky. We had a great run. We did 8 seasons and a movie. And, so it was good.
That's awesome. Any kind of key highlights, whether it be trips that you guys took during it, whether it be just filming experiences that you just look back on and you think were just so amazing?
I mean, the whole experience of it was great, obviously, but, we shot at a YouTube concert on my birthday, and I got Yankee Stadium, to myself and my high school friends and my kids, to film at. So we did a lot of memorable things, but just, all the great talent that I got to meet who was on the show, from great athletes to great actors and directors, writers, whatever. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's incredible that you're able to do that. I know that so many people admire that. I think like I said before, I love the show. I know so many other people that do. So it was a great work.
Thank you.
What's next? I know you are working on other shows. You're working on your podcast. Where do you see yourself going from here now?
I mean, I'm definitely focused on the podcast. We're having a great time doing that. And then I'm working on a show about international football. Soccer is, most people call it America, but I'm working with Thierry Henry on that, and we're hoping to be filming that soon. That's the plan. So, there's a pandemic. There's not a lot of productions going on around the world, and it's tricky, but we'll see. That's the hope. So,
yeah. So kind of throughout your career, from what I've seen in my life, and I try and emulate it, the people who are, the highest performers, the most successful people, have some sort of, whether it be daily routine, whether it be habits that they just are able to create the success that they have. And you've been able to create a lot of success in your life. Is there anything that kind of, you think this is why that's been able to happen, whether it be the habits you've created, the routines you've created, the people you've surrounded yourself with?
Yeah, well, I'm the opposite and would probably have more success if I did the daily habits and routines, but I've always been a pretty ADD guy, and habits and routines, no matter how hard I try, are difficult. I think, certainly what I had early on my career was persistence and a lack of willing to give up. No, this business is a lot of no's and a lot of rejections, and you have to find ways not to take that personally in order to get through it. So that was probably the biggest thing for me in my career. Habits would definitely be good. I would probably be a lot more productive if I was waking up every day like I used to. I mean, when I was in my 20s, 30s, I was getting up every day and writing. I don't really do that as much anymore, but I should. Making me feel real guilty right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, you've already had such incredible hits. I'm sure that, the same process that you're currently doing will lead to many more in the future.
You will find out. So never know.
That's awesome. What kind of advice would you give to someone maybe wanting to go into that industry, wanting to become a producer, or just make it in Hollywood?
I have a friend who just got out here who went to Tulane, one of my good friends from childhood's daughters. And, as I told her, it's exactly what I said. It's really wanting this business, especially now because it's getting harder and harder with everything going on. You have to want to do this more than anything else in the world, because there are definitely easier ways to make a living. The rewards and success obviously are a different level for some people looking for that, but you have to just really love movies and film, TV, and all of that stuff, and really live and breathe it. Otherwise, it's kind of silly to even engage in it. But and then once you get out here, it's about persistence and, like I said, not willing to quit and believing in yourself. But it's also self-awareness. I came out here with a lot of friends who, they didn't want to work hard enough and they didn't have enough talent. So some of them kept going and have burned 30 years of their lives, and some figured out this wasn't the thing for them early on. So I think it's important, whoever comes into the Hollywood business really goes, this is something I'm going to commit to 100%, and I'm going to give it everything I got. And, because there is often no actual job, you still have to wake up every day like you have a job, which is, is not easy, especially for people with lack of focus, which a lot of times this business brings those type of people into it. So
Yeah, and what do you think it looks like having that self-awareness? Because, like you said, someone who is trying to make it in the business for 30 years and doesn't get anywhere, how do you go from or find the line between I need to keep being persistent, I need to keep trying versus I've been doing this for 30 years, I need to stop and do something else?
You know what? That's the age-old question, and hopefully you have people around you who you trust, who will really give it to you honestly, and you'll buy that. Because again, this business it does have a lot of delusional people in it who don't see all the signposts, who don't realize that nothing is happening for them because they're not good enough or because they're not working hard enough. So that's the tricky thing. And I don't know that there's any way to teach people self-awareness. You have to just have it, and have to understand, unless you want that life where you're 50 years old and struggling and still not sure what your business you're actually in, because that's what happens to a lot of people in this business. I mean, for the most part, if you go to law school, I mean, it used to be anyway, it's going to be a tough world coming after this pandemic. But if you got yourself your skills and then you started working up that chain, usually if you were good and worked hard, you could keep moving up. It doesn't work like that in this business. And people can move up who have put no time into it just because they have so much talent or a lucky break. And then other people who are good can work their ass off and never get anywhere. I do believe the people who do both will ultimately find their place, which means work hard and have talent. But that doesn't mean you're going to be, Steven Spielberg. It's very few and far between. So that's why I said it's got to be something that you really live and breathe every day and love.
Yeah, and did growing up, did you know that, maybe you wanted to be in the movie industry, the TV industry, or is that something that really just came later on in life?
I mean, I wanted to be an athlete, and my self-awareness let me know that I was never going to make money as an athlete. So fortunately, I didn't delude myself with that, but I always wanted to be in the movie business. I didn't know a single person, and I didn't even know how to attempt to do it. Nowadays, you can have an iPhone and an Instagram account and you're in the movie business. You couldn't do that in 1990. So it was a big decision coming out here. My parents were very much against it. So no, I mean, I dreamt of it when I was a kid, but I didn't make movies when I was young. I wasn't writing screenplays, but I watched television movies pretty obsessively. And I had people that I was, inspired by. So, but not a lot of plans. No.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely relate to the fact that, trying to make it in that business is extremely hard. It's difficult. It's something that very few people can do. And it was probably almost impossible for you to make it in that business as well. But from the athlete side, there's no way I should have made it to where I made it in athletics. And I understand that journey, and the outcome is worth it in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's why, you made it so we can say, wow. And I'm sure a lot of people said to you, are you fucking crazy? So
all the time,
believe me, my parents, when I did a stand-up show in New York and I brought everyone from Long Island. I mean, there were 300-400 people there and I was an amateur. So, and I bombed, which I didn't bomb a lot, but I bombed in front of every single person I knew from New York. And my father's best friend called me up the next day and said, you're killing your parents. What are you doing? This is not for you. So again, he didn't really know what my skills or my talents were, but I listened, I heard what he said, and I made decisions to keep going with where I was at. So obviously I don't regret it, but like I said, you got to combine both work ethic and have some talent, and then you need some luck. And it's always important. I made some great connections from Tulane. I mean, Mark Wahlberg's manager was my brother's friend from Tulane. And even though things went pretty well in my career, it was the fact that we had that connection that worked out for everybody, but that led to Entourage. So,
Yeah. And I think that's another important thing where I think so many people are just scared or not willing to reach out to others to build those connections. I mean, I just reached out to you randomly because you went to Tulane, and that's how we got on a call. I think so many people are just afraid to do that, whereas the people who become successful don't care. If you didn't respond, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. I was hoping you would, but it would have been fine.
Yeah, well, that's the amazing thing, and I hate to suggest it because I do get a crazy amount of DMs, but I tell everybody now that, you know, you have access that I didn't have. When I got to Hollywood, my father knew one person who he set up with a meeting. The guy treated me like shit. It led nowhere, and it took months for me to even get in that door. Now there really is this Instagram and Twitter and all of this stuff where you can reach out to people that you admire in whatever walk of life there is. And if you have something interesting to say, a different angle, not just, hey, you know, what's up? Talk to me. Because I do get that, like, yo, Ellin, I got a script for you. I mean, I honestly get messages like that. So, you know, it's about differentiating yourself. Obviously, I'm a sports fan. I'm a Tulane sports fan, and your story, it interests me. As I told you on the phone, I did a show with Eric LeGrand, who was a paralyzed football player, and you know, obviously that's very different from yours. But the idea of athletes, and especially athletes who have whatever you want to call them, I don't know if disabilities is even the word anymore, but like Jim Abbott, who was a one-handed pitcher for the Yankees, and those stories inspire me and are the things that I talk to people about, which is that no one's going to tell you no when you really believe in yourself and you're good. Because the truth is, I haven't seen you play football. You're obviously good. So you can't just say, I believe in myself and I'm going to get there no matter what, because that would be ridiculous. But it's having both of those things that can work out, you know?
Yeah, and I think if you have those traits in one area, I think you can bring them into another area really easily. You know, like I take the same exact traits that I used to get to be successful in football to my career now. And it's all it is for me is work harder than everyone else at what I do and try and accomplish the goal. And for some people that works, for some people it doesn't, but it worked for me. So that's what I continue to do.
Yeah. And I think that's key. And that's why, you know, I had so many athletes on my show because and why I'm working on this football show. I love athletes, and, you know, some of them obviously, not even some of them, obviously you're born with something, you know, no matter what I did, because I actually did work hard at sports. No matter what I did, I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. I get that. But the ones, the Michael Jordans, whoever, that have the talent but also have the work ethic are the ones I really look to. And you see them like, you know, I was as much as I hated Michael Jordan growing up because I was a Knicks fan, it was like Michael Jordan and Kobe were just two guys I looked at. It's kind of how I play sports. And my friends will tell you I get in fights, even if they're better than me, because I believe I can win. And that fight is important. And that's obviously, if I had Michael and Kobe's talent with my mind, that would be better. But I think it's imperative that you can kind of combine both. And by the way, that's not necessarily just let's decide to do it. I think just like Michael Jordan was born with that athletic ability, he's also born with a certain work ethic, or was it taught as a child or whatever it was. But when you have those two things, especially when you're in a line of work that you love, you got to use them to, you know, your advantage, everything you can.
100%. And even with like Michael Jordan, you know, he was talented, but he worked his ass off. I mean, he outworked everyone else to get where he was.
Yeah, and also Michael Jordan didn't make his high school team in freshman year. So, I mean, you're like, okay, he could have just quit right there, you know? So, you know, those are the guys that inspire me, you know, that really do. And like I said, you just used to see it on Kobe's face. Whether some teammates didn't appreciate it or not, he was going to kill to win every game, and he was going to try his best to do everything he could every moment. And I love that. So.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. I love to hear that. You know, what else? Any, you know, last kind of advice or anything else that you want to share with listeners, where people can find you, things like that?
I mean, you know, it's not about finding me, but, you know, I think that, like I said, you know, when you're in college, I don't know if you have a big Tulane audience or what, but it's like really think about and focus on what you want and what your dreams are. And especially when you're at that age, I think the sky's the limit, and to really think about what it is, if you could do anything, what it would be, and then kind of realistically look if that's a possibility and what's the moves and the steps that you need to take in order of that. Obviously, the world is very screwed up right now, and it's hard. My son's a freshman in college, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I still try to get him to commit to imagining that a year from now, a year and a half from now, the world is going to be right back to where it was. And a big thing in Hollywood is, even for me, when you have success, you can't sit back, because you can quickly, years pass, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, what have you done lately? What have you done? Where are you at? So it's really important that you don't waste that time. And I think a lot of people come out of college, some get right to work in a profession they may not even like, and before they know it, they're stuck in that. Some people sit around and party and go, I don't know what to do. The best thing you can really do is try to make a plan of what it is you would do if you could do anything, and see if there's ways that you can start heading towards that. So. Yeah,
love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing the advice and coming on.
You got it. And everyone check out Victory, the podcast. It's fun. Really tell you more about
I've listened to it. If anyone else is out there, I've listened to it. It's really funny. I love the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, and that's it. So stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it at all, if you got one thing out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you.